Potential. Welcome to Level 3 of RPG Potential. I'm Kody, and in this episode, I'm talking with Jimmy Spencer. Jimmy created Cricket, Jay's Really Peculiar Game, a traditionally animated, turn-based JRPG that's out on all platforms now. Try the game's demo for free today, and get the full game on your preferred platform. Thanks for joining me to talk, Jimmy. What are some of your favorite RPGs, and why?
Hey Cody. So some of my favorite RPGs, one that I will always sing the praises of till the end of time is definitely Skies of Arcadia. Legends in particular on the GameCube. I mean, it's originally a Dreamcast game, but I love that game to death. Another one that I love in particular, I feel like every JRPG creator says this is Chrono Trigger. Everyone says that, but it's a classic for a reason. Obviously, Mother 2 / Earthbound. That one's also goated. And Dragon Quest 8 and Dragon Quest 11 are also near and dear to my heart. I know Dragon Quest 11 gets a little controversy, but I enjoy it so much. But yeah, I guess
11
those are
is pretty cool, yeah.
I love 11 a lot. I think mainly people's gripes were around the soundtrack because the original release was, I think it was just MIDI tracks,
right.
but then the S edition got all the
I think that had
symphonic
the
versions.
yeah, that was
So
cool.
yeah, I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Trying to think of, I'm looking at my shelf right now. Oh, I'm not on camera, but like I was like looking at my shelf. Yakuza Like a Dragon is a great one.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Oh, how could I forget Suikoden 2? I guess I didn't because I named it just now. But yeah, Suikoden 2 is absolutely an incredible game. For those of you who are listening who haven't played it and love JRPGs, man, Suikoden is truly one of the greatest. Oh man, I could go on. How long do I have? I could go forever. Grandia and Grandia 2, those are also great.
Yeah.
So I mean, Mother 3, duh. And I'm probably like one of 6 people on planet Earth who finished Earthbound 0.
Yeah. Yeah, that one, I mean, it's tough to finish that one, but it's fun for what it is.
Right. It's that thing of like I finished it. I'm like, I see what you were going
Yeah,
for.
exactly.
You know,
Yep.
like, and it was good enough for what it needed to be. But yeah, I think Earthbound elaborated on everything it tried to do and more. But it's really interesting to see where it all started development wise and like what Itoy was thinking. And then I feel like in terms of his writing, if you want to say like crescendo or whatever, Mother 3 is just really good.
Yeah.
What you could truly feel like he had matured too
Absolutely.
in a way
Yeah.
as a writer. As a person he was already, but like as a
Yeah.
writer, he learned so much during that time. But I mean that game had its own development trials, so it makes sense that you would grow with it.
When did you come up with the first idea for Cricket, and what was it like?
Oh man. You know what's funny is the second question, it could be taken in multiple ways, so I'm gonna do that, but give it a moment. It's like but the first idea for Cricket came up in because I've been working on a game engine for a while, but I had my first industry job, and just one night I was actually, interestingly enough, I'm not a very I wouldn't say I'm a sad person, but in that moment I was feeling pretty sad. My life was in kind of a place that I wasn't that happy with. Like my first job wasn't where I wanted to be, and etc. And I was a recent college grad, fairly recent. And one night, I read I forgot where I read it, but I read an essay on Neon Genesis Evangelion, and which is one of my favorite things of all time.
Yeah.
And it was discussing the characters and their relationships, not the obvious stuff that everyone talks about with Ava. And it just inspired me. I was like, I could write like this. I like writing people. Um, and that night I came up with what I would argue is perhaps like early origins of Jay, Zach, and Symphony. Jay was originally called Oliver, actually.
Oh,
Um, yeah, a lot. Then I guess someone said, "Don't do that," and so we didn't do that.
yeah.
But uh, but early origins of the characters and Cricket was originally. This is the what was it like part, I guess, is the first draft of Cricket was originally like a fantasy, like a traditional
Oh,
fantasy.
so it wasn't like a modern style.
Yeah, there was no plan to do animation or anything. It was pixel art and all this stuff. Um, those things kind of happened to me. We can get to those later. But
Yeah.
yeah. But what was it like? Cricket was very different. The characters were the same though. Um,
Right.
like which is I think when you're writing is actually a pretty good indicator you have a good set of characters or a good chemistry is that no matter the setting the characters in the scenario work out well, because the point of like getting to a land to make a wish to bring someone back to life that had always been the core of the story. That never changed. Just the window dressing around it. And then what was it like? I guess also you could say what was it like to come up with a idea like that? I was like writing it down. I went, oh, this would be kind of cool to make this tiny dinky little JRPG in my fun little engine. Yeah, no, I bit off way more than I could chew. And I had made games before. I made like a few games before. And so I understood game scope, but I think as the game made progress, so did my ambition, if that makes sense, and yeah, and so I just kept adding more features and um I I was like was it the sprint mechanic came in pretty early. Uh then like the early origins of the combat system was coming together because I wanted to do like more team attacks from like Chrono Trigger and stuff. It just kept ballooning out because I just kept having ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question is if you had any examples of changes the game has gone through since that first idea. So, is there anything else that changed from that first idea, that first version of it to now?
Oh, a lot. Like, how much time you got? I'm kidding.
What are some of the most significant ones, do you think?
The combat system actually with the team attacks originally there was it turned out to be way overpowered, but it didn't create the gameplay I wanted. But
Right.
the original idea was that if you used the team attack to finish a character, the the two characters, three characters would have a reload, and they would do the same attack to the next enemy automatically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but this was, very, very early draft, and I tested it out and I went, "Wow, that's cool, but oh boy, that is way too much damage." So that idea ended up not coming through, but that was in a very, very early draft of the game. Uh the setting changed
Right,
massively.
yeah.
The the size of areas in the game because now we were doing the whole hand drawn thing.
Yeah.
It takes those things take a really long time. So like all the in-game areas got a lot smaller, which I think was
Right.
actually to the game's benefit anyway. Like the game's areas just became more dense and more lively, and I think that
Yeah.
just yeah, that really ended up being to our benefit. I learned a lot during the development. Although, if you told me at the beginning, it's like, yeah, this is not going to be pixel art. It's going to be like hand drawn art and all this stuff. Like, I'd be like, no, no way. That's ridiculous. When it was a pixel art game, and then like some friends joined on to do the art, and eventually we hired on our first non-friend hire, um, who was an animator. She just came in and was like, "I think we should do the characters like this," and I think we should do that. I just looked at it like, "Yeah, you're right. This is better." Like so, I think it was just a lot of. I truly believe in like collaborative work,
Right.
and the benefits of it, and so And we hadn't gotten that far into the game yet when we had that pitch for the hand drawn art. So I was like, yeah, we should go that direction. I think also the background, they were originally pixel art. Then we had one artist like do them in their style, and they kind of took on this almost like watercolory sort of thing, or kind of like modern cartoon adjacent backgrounds. But then our current art director, she came in and like overhauled the whole thing, kind of kept that feel, but did it did it her own way because she had worked in cartoons before. So she was like, "This is how we would do it." Like it's like you kind of have the right idea, but this is how we do it. And then that was like, yeah, that's just it. So as far as I know, after that we haven't changed much. But I mean, you gotta at some point sit down and make a game. So
Yeah. It's cool to hear how all those ideas kind of progress into the game that it is now.
yeah, a lot of it was throwing myself down a cliff and seeing where I land. But I kid. If I have a recommendation for anyone, it's follow the better ideas, but at some point a game does have to get made.
Yeah, right.
And it's okay to roll ideas into the next game and to roll lessons into the next game. Like
Definitely.
there's already things that we learned from cricket that we're gonna apply to the next game in terms of improving our tooling and improving our workflows and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
you're always gonna be learning. Don't undo work simply because you have a better idea.
What do you think the most important mechanics of cricket now are that distinguish it in the RPG genre to you? And how did you come up with those particular ideas?
Mechanically,
Yeah.
oh boy, because cricket is really like it's a culmination of a lot of things
Yes.
I wanted to see in JRPGs.
Right.
I wanted to see the team act more as a team. I know often the counterpoint is like, well, the team mechanics are the synergy between the characters. I was like, nah. Let's watch them be friends,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think the team attacks mechanic with the meter mechanic, the tide meter mechanic is perhaps its most unique element.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, with the and incorporating that into the time kits. I'm a huge fan of it as a game designer. Systems that kind of like all culminate into a like there's obvious finger pointing as like use this friggin' thing,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Like yeah, and I think cricket we do that with the tide meter, where it's like land your time hit so you can get the meter, and the meter lets you do the team attack and boost your attack. So you should definitely use it. Like and that's perhaps its most unique mechanic, and it's most important. The other one I think that this is the one that makes cricket really popular, I think, with like younger kids, and I'm glad it works, is the sprint mechanic where you can bump your head into people and things and stuff happens.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
In the overworld.
And yeah, and because that was inspired by when I'm playing like other RPGs, I always go like I just feel like this world could be more interactive if you just let it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started adding ways to interact with the environment and uh, yeah, like also picking up objects and throwing them and other stuff. The problem with that is I understand now with 2024 hindsight, is that basically means you're making two video games.
Yeah.
um, and so that's what cricket kind of is. It actually really is kind of like two video games in one. But
Yeah, the overworld and the battle system are like two different things that you just kind of have to like attach together, it seems like, right?
right, yeah, you kind of interlock them like
Yeah,
if you did that with your fingers, right?
right.
Like you kind of force them to come together
Yeah,
and hope it works. And as a result of like that, I created ways that the battles or the overworld interact with battles where you can like sprint into enemies that gives you
right. That
initiative
makes
and like
sense. Yeah.
and enemies can get hit by cars and other like
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah, it ended up ballooning into this like big old thing of it's like, yeah, this should interact with all the battles, and it's like, oh, or the battle mechanic should be affected by all this junk, and oh, there were more ideas, Kody. There were way more ideas. I had to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
How did I come up with these ideas? I think it just evolved naturally. How just by observing the world and like just thinking a lot about, because I mean I had 13 years to think about it, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
um I would often think about it on my bus ride to work,
Yeah.
um and about how to make the game more interactive, more fun, uh more surprises, more, interactivity.
Yeah.
And as a game designer, I've always intuited a like game feel is really really important to me.
Yeah, that makes
Um
sense.
yeah, like your systems can be a little rough as long as the game feels good to play. That's like the part I care about the most. And so I would often go in and just like tweak stuff to make stuff like feel good. And I was like, well, if an enemy gets hit by a car, like they should take damage. It should
Yeah.
feel good that you fooled an enemy into doing that. That's where like a lot of those ideas came from. I guess it's just I as a person when it comes to because I used to wrestle in high school, and like
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to do was plan so far ahead and surprise people.
Yeah.
So uh so I love doing that in cricket as well. It's just like, oh yeah, I knew you were going to do that, and
Right.
then mess with people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a game of expectations when you're designing something like that. Right.
mhm.
Yeah.
And playing with them just ever so
Yes.
slightly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, I'm looking forward to what your projects do as well, Cody.
Oh, thanks.
I'm curious.
So, were there any games in particular, RPGs or otherwise, that influenced the battles and the game design?
I would definitely say. I mean, we kind of glossed over it briefly.
Yeah,
Yeah, a Chrono Trigger with the
right.
team mechanics,
Yeah.
Octopath Traveler with the boosting mechanic.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then fighting games for the meter mechanic. I used to play
Oh, yeah.
a lot of Street Fighter 4. Like a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
Street Fighter 4. Yeah. Um and you can watch old video of like some major tournaments and watch me get friggin' destroyed on stream, but it's fine. I guess it for me is because once again, kind of the wrestling thing is like I needed something to replace that competitive aspect of my life, and Street Fighter 4 was it like scratched that itch.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say those games mainly, and then on the overworld, Earthbound is an obvious one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then Zelda: A Link to the Past with the sprinting and the mechanic. I just wanted to take it further, where you could like make people angry. I
Right.
thought that was funny. um, and then, oh, also, what was it in cricket? Yeah, you could also just walk up, talk to people, and then walk away mid conversation. Like, and
Wow.
they get mad at you.
I didn't know that.
I love that realization. Once again, playing with people's expectations.
Yeah,
They like walk up and talk to someone, and then they notice they still have control of Jay.
right. Yeah,
And then
because
you
it's
just
not a
turn around.
typical thing in a lot of RPGs.
Right, you don't have to hold still, and then people walk away, and the character eventually just goes like, "Hey, that's rude." Just like under the hood, the math and, like, the way a lot of the data plays out is, Dragon Quest VIII. My recommendation to other JRPG developers is if you don't really care for mathematics, I mean, I do, but, like, I would say study the damage calculations for other JRPGs and like play test them and see how they feel. In particular, I went with Dragon Quest VIII and like studied that in depth, and then added my own spin on top of a lot of their stuff. And then now Square Enix is gonna sue me. All right, well, I'm kidding. I didn't steal anything, but like study games that you enjoy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What aspects of RPGs generally do you believe define the genre?
Oh boy,
This is a tough question
this is a tough question, and
because a lot of
because it's
people
like,
argue what actually defines an RPG.
yeah, they argue about it all day, and I usually don't chime in with an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, RPGs are about like deep mathematical systems. In particular, I enjoy the turn-based ones. I know there are action RPGs. Bear with me.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you think it mostly has to do with the math?
yeah, the math or like the systems that run underneath it. I know some people go, "Well, is Zelda then an action RPG?" And my answer to that is, "Don't be obtuse." Like you know what I mean.
Right.
Like high damage numbers, meters. I think also you can't just have like those mechanics. You also have like a long saga of a story. Like they're trying to like uh I often think about like a lot of old JRPGs of like stories of saving the world. I don't think you have to like I know it's in the name role playing, but uh I think you can either be a named character or you can be someone you made up. I think there's a lot of like breadth to the genre, and I think sometimes people try to apply these narrow definitions because they're like that's what
Yeah.
genre is for.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, and to me, to a certain extent, this is going to extend out a little bit. Is I find it interesting that we separate games by like their gameplay and
Yeah.
not much else. Um, I mean, I know that is the defining thing about video games, but like, I'm hoping that someday we reach a time, and we kind of getting there, where, for example, like horror games will start with the word horror in their
Yeah.
like when people describe them, and I'm hoping we can kind of get that way with video games with like genre. It's like this is a horror something something, you know, like more descriptors. Like we can get more
Yeah.
specific because there are so many games out there. Like we do that with like with film, we don't say uh what's it? It's a it well, we do say horror film, but we don't say like uh 80 millimeter uh
Right.
Dutch angle.
Yes.
Like we don't
We
talk
don't
about the
put them in a
techniques.
yeah, we don't put them in a box like that in
Yeah.
movies like how we do in video games. Yeah.
Yeah, and books and stuff. And so
Yes.
I wonder how our language, as we get more sophisticated and become more accepted in the, I mean, we're already pretty accepted in the general populace, but as that keeps growing, like how we talk about games will change. Uh, so this is me circumventing the original
That's
question.
okay.
JRPGs are about to be like deep systems, large numbers, and like larger stories. We have to remember that like back in the 90s, or when like gaming was really picking up and growing into its own, it's interesting. I talk about like big stories because now like a lot of games have big stories, right? And
Yeah.
but back in those days, RPGs were the big games.
Yes, they were. Yeah. When the name RPG came around, really, it was kind of you're playing a role in the
Mhm.
story. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Of this humongous story.
Yeah.
And I think people sometimes we now I'm rambling, but I'm having fun with it.
That's what it's all about.
Is Yeah, right. Well, I because I remember people go like, "Oh, why aren't they making JRPGs like they did in the '90s in the PlayStation era?" And it's like, I think it's because people liked big games. It wasn't that they in particular liked JRPGs,
Yeah.
right? It was that they liked big games, and those were the big games in the '90s. But now we have like these games with humongous stories, and you don't have to be an RPG anymore.
Yes,
Um,
right.
yeah, yeah, and the ones I think about in particular are like Metal Gear Solid games, rest in peace, or like the God of War games, Horizon. Name a Sony first party title.
Yeah, right.
Name Konami games when they cared.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, circling back to the original question. Yeah, I guess systems, numbers, and large
Yeah.
stories. I think are the big things about it. In particular, if you're like a turn-based game, like with the whole menuing system and all that stuff, then that's like you couldn't be anything but an
Yes.
RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's my take on it. And now I'm about to
Yeah.
get roasted. Thanks, Kody.
That's where I'm really curious to ask a lot of people this question and see what their thoughts are, because
Mhm.
I think it's an important question we should be asking about RPGs, because I think it'll help us learn more about them if we actually can understand what a lot of people think really defines them.
True.
We gotta know what our baseline is to really define something as something, you know?
Right. And I guess then that's when I sit back in my little philosopher hat or whatever and go
Yeah.
like, well, I don't like how he defined the genres. Right?
Yeah,
Where I circumvent it
right.
and pretend to be smart.
In the RPGs that ask you to input a name for the protagonist and sometimes create their whole design, do you tend to use a specific name or create a specific type of character every time, or does it change from game to game?
Oh man, for me, I think it changes from game to game. I think about what type of person or character would be the most fun in what I imagine that game's universe to be. Like, is this person? I mean, if you want to go to like the D&D stuff, my friends and I in high school used to play a lot of D&D.
Oh yeah, D&D totally counts. That's an RPG, just not a video game.
Right, not a video game,
Yeah,
right? There
but
are
still an
D&D video
RPG.
games,
Yeah.
but yeah. But like but kind of going in that vein of like, we would make our characters and we would define our world first and then we design our characters and all that stuff and I think it comes back to that all the time is that
Yeah.
I just think about what's the most fun person to be in this world.
Right.
Um yeah, because like I remember in this one universe that was kind of comedic, I made like a monk who had an obsession with things exploding. Uh,
That's great.
so yeah, right. So his whole thing was he maxed out like all of his any ability that maximized his damage, and then after I would roll and kill something, I would just ask, "Did he explode?" Every time. Uh, yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Although I do honestly like when the mother games ask you what your name is, right? They're like, yeah, well, yeah, I know, Ness, Lucas, all that stuff, whatever. You tell me your name,
Yeah, instead
right?
of naming the characters, it asks for the player's name. Yeah.
I like how it creates that like sort of personal relationship between Itoy and like you, the player. I think it's a very unique take on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Mhm,
that's one of the few RPGs that I've played that really tries to create a connection with the player, not just
mhm,
through the character, but through the entire world of the game. It seems like there's a connection to the player there directly by asking for your name. It's a little
mhm.
different.
Right.
Not the name of
Uh,
a character, just the character you're playing the role as.
right. And in a way, in this role playing game, it acknowledges you, the person's
Yes.
role in participating in it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a very uh, man, I love video games and I love it when people bring new ideas to the table. Man.
Yeah.
Like and then I sit there and go, man, I wish I thought of that, which is good. That's
Yeah.
like it, I don't know. I love this medium.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's great.
yeah.
So, do you prefer a favorite kind of character archetype in the RPGs that you play, like a class or something like that?
Yeah, DPS.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
you're all about damage and all the characters you tend to play,
Yeah, I try to
or the ones your
maximize damage.
favorites? Yeah.
Yeah, I was playing with the Eiyuden Chronicle recently, and I just my main character, I was just like cranking damage by the end of the game. I was defeating the bosses, like the end game bosses in like 3 hits, like that sort of. So I just love maximizing damage, which is why in Cricket Symphony is my favorite character to play, because her whole thing is DPS, but she's a glass cannon.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and so I just love doing the most damage with her. She's the most fun for me. But I acknowledge there are other characters and they have different archetypes, etc. But I do enjoy the crap out of DPS characters.
This can apply to more than just RPGs, but how much do you value the relationship between game mechanics and story when you play an RPG?
This has always been an interesting topic of like debate, I
Yeah.
think.
This can span outside of RPGs.
I acknowledge that a game can be better with it, for sure. That I think that's perhaps even glib of me to say. But I think there was a particular amount of discourse when another RPG came out. The discussion about like, well, this thing can only be a video game, and therefore that makes it a better video game. And I was like, I don't think that statement is true. I don't like the idea of that, like, because a game's story is separate from, or its mechanics are not as integral to the story. For example, like, in role playing games, kind of choice is also kind of important. But, like, where it's like, oh, but your choices don't really affect the ending, therefore it's a worse RPG. I was like, I don't think so. If you enjoy your time with it and you enjoy what you did, like all the Dragon Quest games, like, they if they have alternate endings, it's not a result of your choices. It's because you did something secret. And I think that's fine. That's perfectly adequate and good. Is a game necessarily it'll lead to a more holistic feeling game, sure, but it's not a requirement. So when it comes to value, how much do I personally value the relationship? I would probably say a moderate amount. It's like better with, but not required. I just know it entered like a lot of if you want to call it YouTube and Twitter discourse.
Yeah.
Where it was like, that there's the Ludo narrative is not cohesive, therefore worst game. I was like, I don't think that's a healthy attitude. That feels like,
yeah,
for me personally, I'm not the type of person who likes to be black and white about issues. With obvious caveats, there are some things that are obviously like, go a certain direction. Like a video game must be playable, right?
Right.
But I'm not a fan of like games must be like this.
Yeah.
Movies must be like that.
I mean,
because then
really what it's about is if it's entertaining.
Right.
It's not about if the Ludo narrative is cohesive.
Yeah.
If it's entertaining to somebody, whether they are paying attention to the Ludo narrative or not, if it's entertaining, then it's entertaining. You're gonna enjoy it.
Right. It's engrossing and all that stuff. I mean, that's at the end of the day, like, as much as video games are art, and they absolutely are.
And definitely, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is a product that you purchase through which you will have fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, hopefully,
right,
or not. Like,
yeah.
I've there was a phase where my friends and I were just playing through games that we weren't having fun with on purpose.
Sometimes it's fun to play those games. There's its own kind of entertainment in that.
Right. What was it that we would do? Well, because I think it's just hanging out with my friends.
Yeah, I've done stuff like that with my friends too, yeah.
And then just everyone's struggling together to get through this video game. And I think that's so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you and your friends are also fellow compatriots in the consumption of less than adequate video games.
Yeah, there's a large variety of games out there, some great, some not so great, and you can find some entertainment in both of them somehow. But like at the end of the day, is it really a bad game if it's entertaining you? Maybe, I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. Well, I think I reserve the words like a bad video game when I feel like a game has like no redeeming value, right? Like where it's just like heinous and awful, like in every way, and like where like will put this in front of my friends, and my friend will just like put the controller down, and you'd be like, dog, this is just way too offensive.
Yes,
Right? Like
right.
that
Yeah,
that
that's
to me is
bad. Yeah,
that's bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if
Like
a game
uh,
has like mechanics that aren't great, but it's entertaining to play because the mechanics aren't that great, it's still entertaining, I guess. Yeah, in that case. But if it is just like an offensive, weird game, I mean that in that case it's like that's bad. Yeah.
yeah, that's bad. That's why it's like that's why I'm usually very careful to say bad video game, me
Yes.
personally,
Yeah, I
right?
agree
But
with that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking at my shelf now because I have them sorted by like score, and I'm just like
Oh,
looking at
really?
this copy of Duke Nukem Forever and remembering like my friend just getting to a certain part of the game. He's like, "Dog, yeah," and he literally was just like, "This is too offensive. I don't think I can keep
Yeah.
going."
Yeah.
Uh, he was like, "Man, Duke Nukem should have stayed in the '90s,"
Yeah.
like that sort of statement.
Yeah.
Sorry for the developers of Duke Nukem Forever. In terms of the technology, it was very impressive for its time. I just want if anyone is listening, I just want you to know I have intense respect for the technology behind the
Yeah.
game.
So, do you value the relationship you have with the character you play as in an RPG as their own individual character outside of you as a player? Or do you usually view them as an avatar that you kind of shape?
I think that depends on the game. Does it ask me to fill in the character blanks?
That's true. Yeah.
Like I think the Mass Effect games give you like sort of that freedom of it's like Renegade, Paragon, like Commander Shepard kind of got a personality, but at the same time he's kind of a blank slate for you to fill in the blanks. Haha, right? Great example like Grandia 2, or Skies of Arcadia. Like you take on the role of these characters, and so I sometimes think, what do I think this character would do if the game gives me a choice? What would he do or say? What would
Yeah.
they do or say? I mean, back in the 2000s and 90s, like every character was male, and that
Yeah.
shouldn't. I'm glad that's not the case anymore, or it's becoming less of the case. It's still kind of the case,
Right.
but but more representation, please. But I think about like what that character would want. That would be best. What I think would be best for their arc, right? So, for example, Skies of Arcadia actually is an excellent example because in the game there are dialogue choices, and you can pick, and based on what you pick, your captain rank score goes up. I don't think it goes down, but it at least will go up if you pick the right choice. And so it's like, what do I think? And Vice wants to be a great captain. So, like, what is the captain thing to say in this moment, right? Like,
Yeah.
and trying to pick that for Vice.
So it seems like you actively do like play the role as that character.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Unless the game asks me to fill in the blanks.
Right.
Um, yeah. Uh, but yeah, so I think it's like sort of take it as it comes. Do I value the relationship? I think coming back to that question.
Yeah, basically like if you value it as like it seems like you value them as a character separate from you the player. Like a
Mhm,
character that has their own thoughts and
mhm,
feelings in the story.
mhm.
Seems is that right? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds about right. And I think it kind of reflects in the writing style of Cricket.
Right.
Um, Kind of circling back to Cricket because like there was one thing I would often bite my nails about when I was on the bus. I was like, "Oh no, it's a role playing game, but it's you're playing a character, and it's
Yeah.
more." I was like, but the player choice. Oh no,
Yeah.
right.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then eventually I learned to get comfortable with my like game design,
Yeah.
and like learning to roll with it. I think every creator goes through that though, is wondering whether they made the wrong choice or not.
Which events in your own life and stories in media have influenced the story you're telling in cricket?
Oh boy. All right.
I guess you very briefly touched on it at the beginning, but if you wanted to go into any more detail or talk about any stories, other stories in media.
Well, I guess in my own life, I'll probably start there because
Yeah.
that's the most obvious influence. Is every character arc in cricket is based off of a lesson I learned
Yeah.
in real life. And the three pillars of cricket story are loss, loneliness, and friendship.
Yeah.
So like losing something important to you, self isolating, and then discovering that friendship is truly the greatest gift of all. And in Jay's case of losing his mom, well, actually, like 10 days before my ninth birthday, I lost my mother figure to cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I have had now what, like 15 years, or no, what, 25 years. So I've had a while, but it really negatively affected my life
Yeah.
in my growth, and I isolated a lot, and I didn't know how to talk about it or talk about things with people, and I think it came out in ways that weren't the most healthy when I was younger. So I think that kind of became the inspiration of the story. I wanted to pay tribute to her,
Yeah.
and also to pass a lesson onto kids that they're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And that I had wonderful friends, and that helped me work through all the emotional trauma from it. Yeah, that was the big one. But then there are other things in my life that, without spoiling too much about what happens in cricket, but like loss of identity, and uh loss of like accolades, and various other like forms of loss
Yeah.
make up the character arcs in cricket. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like those were the real life inspirations. If we're
Yeah.
gonna go to media inspirations, Full Metal Alchemist, I feel like, is a good example of trying to, two boys trying to
Yeah.
get back what they lost,
Right. Yeah.
and going to great lengths to do it. I was like, well, I better study this, because Full Metal Alchemist, the manga and slash what became Brotherhood, like the second
Yeah.
anime series, is pretty airtight as a story.
Yeah.
Like very few holes. I know some. If you go looking, you'll find them, but like, you know, overall though, it's pretty airtight.
Yeah.
And another one is The Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah.
Was Yeah, I know. I That
Classic.
one of people. Yeah, it's a classic, and but the idea of like traveling somewhere to make wishes, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
yeah. So, it's funny when I mentioned The Wizard of Oz. One of my best friends, he was like, "Dude, I watched that every night as a kid because I couldn't go to sleep." uh, and then mainly those. Oh, Crayon Shin-chan.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah.
because I don't talk about it much. I'm half Korean, and I know, yeah, people are like, oh, Crayon Shin-chan's Japanese, but yeah, like I used to get like Korean videotapes, all right, and Crayon
Yeah.
Shin-chan would be on it in
Yeah.
Korean, all right,
Right.
like definitely bootleg, but whatever.
Yeah.
Thanks, mom. Um, and so like that humor, that transgressive sort of for the time in Japan,
Yeah.
humor was I always find that hilarious. I still find it hilarious. The
Yeah.
fact he called it like it was a, you know how like in the United States we had Bart Simpson, and like all the
Yeah.
parents got all the
Right.
hullabaloo. When the parents got in the hullabaloo about in Japan about Shin Chan calling his mom Baba, I was like, that's so
Yeah.
funny. Um,
Yeah, that
but
one's one of the classic cartoons in Japan.
it truly, yeah, it's one of the classics that I think
Yeah.
for very good reason. Ed and Eddie also was an influence
Yeah.
on like sort of the writing. Like I enjoyed the kids' antics and like their bonds, their friendship. I love that a lot. Let's see, any other. Oh, man, how could I mention all this stuff without mentioning Monty Python?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one too, yeah.
Yeah, Monty Python, bruh. I am obsessed with Monty Python. I have every movie. I have the entire box set of the TV show. Man, I love British humor. Um, which I think is probably why like our producer at PM is he's Scottish.
Yeah.
So like he so there's like a very British sensibility, like very dry wit to a lot of
Yeah,
stuff,
right.
and that he enjoys.
I grew up with Wallace and Gromit as a show I used to watch a lot, so I understand that. Yeah.
that checks out,
Yeah.
Kody. That completely checks out. Yeah. Wallace and Gromit is right. You want some cheese,
Yeah.
Gromit? I like the way he does the thing with his hands.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid.
That's so good. Yeah, in but just the Monty Python's like ability to, I think it's transgression is like one of my favorite, like transgression without being like mean,
Yeah.
like questioning like society's like limits without because I mean obviously they're from like the late 60s early 70s, so I mean it has its moments of yeah, this was definitely a 1970s thing,
Yeah.
but like some of the hits they still slap, like Argument Clinic, right? Like where it's just two people, like a dude pays money to have an argument with somebody.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, the line I laugh at the most, I think it really does help determine like my sense of humor. It's like that wordplay. It's like during that
Yeah.
Argument Clinic, Michael Palin, like he pays John Cleese the money and they start arguing, and then Michael Palin goes like, no, look here, man, I paid here for a good argument. And then John Cleese goes, no, you came here for an argument. Just it's like I just think that's I came here for a good argument. No. Like, not any argument. Right. I just, that wordplay is so good. So yeah, that defines a lot of like Cricket's, I
Yeah.
think, humor, as well as that dry wit. In particular, Symphony says a lot of things like that.
Right. Yeah.
Ranma one half as well.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I think that once again that transgression of like um or that like that pushing the boundaries a little bit with Ranma, where like Ranma, you know, transitions between boy and girl like forms based on the
Yeah.
water they touch,
Right.
right? Like the temperature of the water, which I always wonder, what's the specific temperature that changes Ranma, and what happens if the water is neutral? What happens then? Like if at a nice 70,
Non-binary.
what happens? Yeah, do we go non-binary? Do we like, now I'm getting curious. Like, right, but yeah, that like pushing out the boundaries and like just asking questions about like why things are the way they are.
What advice would you give to anyone out there who's thinking of making their own RPG?
I don't want competition. I'm kidding. Jeez, I'm kidding. I'm actually kidding. Don't soundbite that one. I would say have strong direction. Don't do what I did. I know earlier I said like take in ideas, but know what you want to make, work with people that you like, and like just keep going. Like it's gonna get difficult. It's not gonna be all fun and games.
You're not going to know it all right off the bat. You kind of have to work through understanding how a lot of that stuff is made.
Right. And you're gonna learn a lot and resist that temptation to change things up simply because you discovered something better. It's okay to take lessons and move forward. But I think the maybe the most important lesson is something I tell my friends all the time about when they want to make progress in their life, in their career, or anything, is I just say get on the board. And like, when you play like basketball or anything, like your mentality changes the moment you score any point. Like, yeah, sure, like because when I was in wrestling, it's like there are days where you're just going to get destroyed by somebody, but the mentality shifts the moment you can score anything, because then that means that there is something. In the case of like creative works, there is now something you can judge. There is something you can look at and go, this is why this isn't good, or this is why it is good. And you can start to
Yes.
build from that. In the case of
Yeah.
like sports scoring, right? It's like, I scored a point. Okay, how do I do that enough times and win? Because if I could do it once, I could do it 10 more times. I think people, when they're making games or doing anything, it's like it's get on the board, score something, even if it's like the worst thing that you can imagine on planet Earth in terms of quality. Like it's just a dinky little like tile based, like hand drawn by you in MS Paint. like thing, and you don't like looking at it, hey, you have something.
Yeah, it's better to have something than nothing. Got to start somewhere.
A lot of people in creative work, people have often focused on doing things right the first time. And like, yeah, sure, that works for like making your bed, or
Yeah.
something. But like that, but creative works, it's different. And so go forward, make something, and then judge it. Get on the board.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing I can pass on to people. Also, RPGs are a big undertaking. Know what you're signing up for. Work with people that you like. It's better to work with someone who's easy to work with and might know a bit less but is willing to learn, as opposed to someone who's hard to work with. Those are some short lessons.
That's great. Thanks for all your thoughts on all this stuff. And where can people find you in Cricket Online?
All right, I've rehearsed this part. I'm kidding. I haven't. I'm gonna completely friggin' wing it. You can find Cricket Jay's Really Peculiar Game on Steam, and you can buy it today. I would really appreciate it if you did, if you like what you see. We worked very, very hard on it over the course of over a decade. So it's a labor of love, and a small team made it. So anything helps. You can find us on Twitter at Studio Kumiho. You can find us on Instagram, which is also at Studio Kumiho. TikTok, Studio Kumiho. Pretty much everything except Facebook, because I don't do anything with Facebook. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being a part of this.
Yeah. I'm always willing to answer questions, and I'm hoping that anything I said helped out an aspiring developer out there. For anyone who wants to make an RPG and is tuning in, I look forward to seeing your game, like someday, no matter who your inspirations are.
It's all those different backgrounds that really make the industry a vibrant place.
Yes, it really it's a collaborative effort. We're all in this together.
Yes.
And like, I look forward to seeing like what you bring to the table.
Thanks again to Jimmy Spencer for joining me to talk about Cricket, Jay's Really Peculiar Game. The game and its free demo are out now on all platforms, so get it today. Thanks for listening. I'm Kody, and this has been RPG Potential.